going on right this.
I want to start off with three very important points. Last Sunday in church, Matthew McCleary made reference to me speaking here tonight, and he said, if you want to learn all about, March Madness and what teams to pick and how to win in your pool bracket, you should come to this. If one look at my bracket would assure you that you do not want to follow what I'm doing, and you would be much better off picking just by school colors and mascots. And by the way, if you are, blue has won the most of any color. I looked it up. 57% of the time, it's a blue team has won a championship. Or excuse me, 57% of the games have been won by a team in blue uniform. And then mascots, they say it's the mythical mascots, like the Duke Blue Devils, the Demon Deacons, and so on. Also, right behind that was the miscellaneous, like the Ohio State Buckeyes and Tar Heels, that kind of thing. Anyway, and then Ann asked me to talk for about 45-50 minutes, and then leave time for questions at the end. And I'm perfectly comfortable doing that, but I'm also very used to being in a classroom. So if you do have a question, just stick your hand up, and I can stop and answer. Nothing is, like in a exact format or form. And I know sometimes it's frustrating trying to remember your question to the end. So if a question pops in your head, feel free to ask. It's not a problem at all. And then the third and maybe most important fact, none of what I'm discussing tonight would be in any way possible without Jody. I've been doing it, next year will be my 40th year of coaching high school and college basketball. So guesstimating, she has given up about over 1,000 nights of me being at games, road trips, traveling abroad, scouting, recruiting, looking at film, and so on. She's been nothing but supportive, and I wouldn't be here if she hadn't been so understanding and helpful. So thank you so much. Oh, that's a picture. That's us in Hawaii this year. So unfortunately, the last 2 years, I've been working at Dominican University in San Rafael. And in our conference, we have 3 teams that play in Hawaii, or that are in Hawaii. So we get to go to Hawaii every year, which is a nice little benefit. Yeah. So to start off, I want to give you a background of what got me to this point tonight, and some of the things that I've experienced along the way. And then I'll really be focusing on my experience with Athletes in Action. That's the thing that has really driven a lot of really changed my coaching. I don't want to say philosophy, but my coaching mentality and my attention to like the other things off the court, like team development, leadership development, that sort of thing. So as I've said, I've been coaching a long time. My first paid coaching job was when I was in 10th grade. I was hired to coach a 7th grade flag football team at my old junior high school. That was my first paid coaching job. I coached other youth groups through high school and college. And then when I got out of college, I was doing, before I went to get my teaching credential, I worked at a junior high school in my hometown of Palo Alto, and I coached 7th grade boys basketball and girls softball. So it's something I've been doing all along. Never up to when I got my teaching credential did I ever think of coaching as a career. I always thought it would be something that I would do. I always thought I would teach and that I would coach on the side if I had the time. I never ever imagined that coaching would take me across the United States and all around the world. But over the last 40 years, I've been fortunate enough to do that. When I first started teaching high school, my first high school interview at Vacaville High School back in 1983, my oldest brother gave me this advice when I went in the interview. He was teaching in the district, and he said, if they ask if you do any extracurricular activities, you say yes, no matter what. So I said yes, and I coached 2 sports that year. And it was a drain, but I got the bug. I got the bug of coaching, and I've been trying to work at that, and basically got consumed by it, and just trying to refine, grow, learn, and get better every single year. why do I enjoy coaching though? That's really what it comes down to. And I get asked that a lot, especially by younger coaches. And at this point, every coach I work with is younger, dramatically younger. The head coach that I work with now is 39 years old, just turned 39 years old. And the associate head coach just turned 36. So I have kids that age. And I get asked a lot of questions about parenting, what do you do with kids, juggling home and work and all those other good things. So, but the reason I enjoy coaching so much is the relationships with other coaches, and especially the relationship with players, individual players. So over the years I've come across a lot of players, and as I was saying earlier before everybody got here, one of the fun things about preparing for this was going back through a lot of pictures and books, and I'll be passing some things out a little bit later on you can look through. And just a flood of memories. I actually stayed up after 1 o'clock last night, putting things together, and I didn't even realize it was that late. I honestly didn't know it was 1 o'clock. I went, whoa, I better get to bed. So it was, and what I was remembering were the relationships. I didn't remember any games. I didn't remember any play that we called out. It's really the relationships with individual players, and that's really what makes this a really special and unique job. And most people, when you look back on your academic career, junior high and high school, for a lot of people, one of the teachers they're going to most remember is a coach. Not always, but oftentimes it will be. It often will have really a positive and lasting impact on a young person because they are working with them in the classroom and outside the classroom as well. The hours we spend off the court, traveling in vans, talking about where they grew up, talking about what they want to do. The list goes on and on. Listening to a lot of rap music, an awful lot of rap music, more than I ever thought existed. But it's their culture, and that's what makes it so enjoyable. Is just being around them and experiencing what they are experiencing and going through. And then the greatest payoff now that I've been working at the college level for the last 15 years, is seeing them graduate. And that's a really special thing. These guys work really hard in the classroom, they work really hard off the court as well. And so it's a really rewarding thing when they do walk across that stage. Unlike a lot of my coaching friends, I can honestly say in the last 39 years, I've never ever been happy the season ended. I've always thought, if it wasn't as successful as we thought it might be, it's always in the back of my mind, we just had 2 more weeks, we'd be really good. And our last season was really, we underachieved. It was disappointing in many ways, but we had a great group of guys. They were fun to be around, they were great to work with, and we were just starting to get it, in the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. So again, 2 more weeks, I think we might have actually won a game. I don't know. And the games are fun, but practice is much, much better. I look forward to practices more than games. Games are what you would all see when you come watch our team play. It is exciting. The lights are on. They're in uniforms. They introduce the players, all those good things. That's really, that's for them. The work for us is really the preparation for the game, and that's what takes place in practice. And that's the most rewarding part. That's where we're working one-on-one or with a small group or whatever it might be. And the whole goal is just to develop each individual to be the best player that he can be, and then that makes us the best team that we can possibly be. So it's always a bittersweet thing when the season ends. Quick background on me. I coached for 10 years in the Sacramento area at a variety of high schools, both public and private. I taught and coached. The whole time I was in high school, I taught as well. I was a full-time teacher at every school. I taught primarily English, although I did teach some history, I taught yearbook, journalism, rhetoric, whatever they gave me. But for 10 years, I was at public schools and also Christian Brothers High School for 3 years. 2 very different experiences being in a public and a private school as far as talking about faith, talking about Jesus, talking about God. And honestly, sometimes the conversations were better in a public school than they were in a private school because they had more questions. And of course, I think it's pretty obvious. Many of the kids in public schools are attending churches and they're growing up in Christ-centered families. So it's not like that they are completely devoid of any connection. I had the opportunity to coach at every level. I coached freshman, junior varsity, and every year it was just about that team becoming the best team that we possibly could be. Then after I did 10 years at the high school level, I spent 14 years at American River College. And that was a new set of challenges with junior college players. We had some very talented players who needed to work academically, emotionally, maturity-wise. They had to do some growing up. And then we had some players that were really together academically, but not very good athletically. So we had a little bit of everything. So we spent a lot of time recruiting players, local high school players, to come play in our program. We tried to develop them for 2 years, and then we would spend a good deal of time trying to get them to move on to a 4-year school. Most of our players over the 14 years, I don't know the percentage, but it was a high, probably 75% or more, went on and played at a 4-year school. Some of them got Division I scholarships, some of them got Division II scholarships, most of them got a partial scholarship somewhere. And as we kept telling them, if basketball pays for your education in any way, you're winning. That's a win. Okay, so anything you can do to get basketball to pay for some of your education, you're ahead of the game. They were not leaving college with the same amount of debt that a lot of students are incurring now. So, I spent 26 years in the classroom. I taught primarily English, but I also taught some history, as I said, and I taught everything that they gave me. I taught English and history at the high school level, and at the collegiate level, I also taught English. So the entire time I was at American River, I basically had a full load of classes, either from classes at American River. I also did classes at Sierra College, Yuba College, Sac State, taught at Sac State for 3 years, just picking up classes where I could to help pay the bills, and also feed my basketball addiction. But I loved being in the classroom, I really did. And I always thought, boy, it would be such a great job if all you had to do was show up every day and just coach, and that's all you did. And that's what I've been doing the last 15 years, and it is great. It is a great way to do it. The money isn't as good, but it is a very rewarding and fun job. I just say I'm going to school. I'm going to practice. It's not work. And we put in, as Jody will say, you can't say it's not work because you put in a lot of hours. We put in a ton of hours. During the season, it's easily 50, 60 hours a week. But it's looking at film, it's talking to a player, it's talking to a recruit. So you're interacting constantly with people. And so it's a lot different than going to an office and sitting at a desk or something like that. So I feel very privileged to have done that both in the classroom and on the court for 26 years. The last 15 years, as I've said, I've been at the 4-year level. So I did 2 years at Menlo College down in Atherton. I went down there as an assistant, and then the head coach there left, and I took over as the head coach. At that time, Menlo was a Division III school. The pay was not very good. As a matter of fact, especially for Palo Alto, it was abysmal. It was not a living wage, and that was about 2010 when everything bottomed out, and we realized, you know what, it's not smart to live in 2 different places, because we've always kept our home here in Sacramento, and I've been either commuting or living in apartments. So it just made sense to come back home, regroup, and that's exactly what we did, and it's worked out beautifully, because it was about that time, after coming back home, I spent a year traveling around. I call it my graduate year. I started up at Whitworth College in Spokane, Washington, and I drove, not all at once, obviously, throughout the whole basketball season, drove all the way down to, ended up in San Diego, visiting high school teams, college teams, junior college teams. I went and watched 2 Kings practices. I would just call them up and say, here's what I'm doing, can I come watch a practice and come watch a game? They'd always say, come on over. And they'd show me around the place, and I learned a lot about coaching, a lot about how that's really where I realized what I'm teaching our players, offense and defense, everyone else is doing that too. We were doing the same thing. So I thought, okay, that part is good. We need to develop the other side as well. And that's where I really started studying and learning about leadership development, team culture, and that sort of thing. That's really what I've been focusing on the last 15 years. Then I spent 5 years at Cal Maritime in Vallejo, and I commuted that. It's an hour drive each way, but our practices are usually late afternoon or early evening, so I could leave like at 11 o'clock in the morning, shoot there in 60 minutes, and drive home at 9 o'clock at night, and not very long at all. At the same time, our daughter Allison was living in Encino, and then driving 18 miles one way to her job at Paramount Pictures. And I was talking to her one day, and she was in her car driving home, and she'd been in her car for an hour and a half to go that 18 miles. And I said, I drove 62 miles, and I made it an hour, So it was an easy commute, is what I'm saying. Then after that, that head coach that I worked with, and I should also point out, in each one of the cases, every instance of where I've been in the last 15 years, it's to go work with a specific individual. Every one of them is just outstanding person, an outstanding coach, and an even better person. I've enjoyed working with them, learning from them. They all have treated me as an equal, not just an assistant, and let me do a lot of coaching and a lot of in-game decisions and that sort of thing. So it's been very fun and rewarding as well. So the coach at Cal Maritime got the job at Cal State East Bay. And he said, I would like you to stay here and take over this program. And I said, I would like to go with you over to East Bay, because it was for me, it was a new experience. It would be a different experience, a different level. We were at one level, and then we jumped. This was NCAA Division II, and I thought that would be a fun thing to experience. I'd never done anything like that. So talked with Jody, and she said, and the pay was enough that I could afford an apartment over in the Bay Area. So I lived over there during the season. So from August through February, and usually into March, I had an apartment over there, actually in San Mateo. And then I was there for 3 years, and the pandemic hit. And my job was funded primarily through summer camps, and there were no summer camps for 2 years. So they said, my job's no longer there. So during the pandemic, I wasn't sure what I was gonna do. I thought, okay, maybe it's time for me to come home, stop playing and be home, and just do whatever I need to do around Sacramento. And then a young coach I worked with at Cal State East Bay, he called me up, and he had gotten a job at Holy Names University in Oakland. And he said, I've never been a head coach before in my life, at any level. I'm gonna be a Division II head coach. He said, I need somebody to help me, and I need somebody I trust, somebody I know. And I'd worked with him for 5 years at 2 different schools. So again, talked to Jody, what do you think about this? And she said, you have to help out. So, and it was a fun time, a strange time. The first year was towards the end of the pandemic. It was very awkward. We had to practice outside with masks on and gloves, and only one ball per one player. It was just very strange time. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant to do this as well. This is my current team. I forgot, I had pictures of all these places. That's why I forgot about these slides here. This is our oldest daughter, Sarah, got married last year. And this is our family, our 2 daughters, our 2 granddaughters, 2 sons-in-law, Jody's mother, and it was a wonderful day. This was something we put up at East Bay. It was, I will take credit for it. It was my brainchild to do this. I didn't implement it, but it was my idea. We had each player write down a word that they wanted, that they felt connected to our program, and so that's what all these words are. And then every year when a new player came in, we'd put up a new word with that. And that wall is now pretty full. I saw it a couple of years ago, and it's getting pretty full. It's kind of a fun thing. And that's a wall, like, that big. So Okay, this is a Cal Maritime. This is a game we played up at Montana Tech. And I'm showing you these pictures. This is the fun part, is sharing these experiences with the young men. And just going through these life experiences, life-changing things. And it's just a lot of fun. This is at a national tournament in Branson, Missouri. This is at Cal State East Bay. That's where now we're up to date. And again, it's just the joy of the being together, growing together, and learning how to play together. So anyway, then I went to Holy Names. This was us a couple of years ago at an airport in Hawaii, because it's the same conference as Dominican. In fact, we played Dominican every year that I was at Holy Names. I was there for 3 years, but only two we played games, and then the school closed down. They shut the doors, so it was a kind of a very strange. Last season was very, very strange. We had just beaten Chico State, which was a regionally ranked team. They were in the top 20, and we beat them. And Holy Names had not been very good in basketball, but we had a really young team, really coming together. We had some momentum. They had a key player injured, full disclosure. And then the next night we had to tell them that the school was canceling athletics and they would not be playing here next year. And then 2 months later, we were sitting in a gym in Irvine at Concordia University. And I still remember the women were playing, and all the players started they're all looking at their phones, of course, and they said, "Wait, what? What's going on? Look at your phone." I picked up my phone, and there was an article announcing the school was closing. They had not told us that, so it was a very strange time, is what I'm saying. But the last year with these guys was a lot of fun. We just gave it everything we had, and it was a really good group of guys. 4 of them went with me, followed me over to Dominican, and one has now 2 have graduated, and 2 will be back next year for their final year. This is at Dominican this year. We have most of our home games. The woman in the middle there, she's our honorary coach of the night, a professor on campus. We try and get different professors to come. They sit on our bench. They come into our locker room for the pregame talk, the postgame talk, and make them a part of the team. Give them a shirt. And it's fun. They all say they have a great time, and they all sign up again for next year. So it's a great experience. This was earlier in the year. We went out to a beach on just a team building day. Let's go. Got some sandwiches. Went out to Muir Beach and just played for an afternoon. Just after a long week of working out. So just again, the fun experiences that we get to have. So after Holy Names closed, the Dominican head coach called me up and he said, "Would you consider coming over working for me?" I said, "Well, let me talk to Joey." And again, it's been, I've just thoroughly enjoyed the last 2 years. It's kind of, I don't want to say rejuvenating, because I wasn't like wearing down, but it's been really, really fun being around these young coaches and these young players, trying to build up something new. So, or pretty new. So, very rewarding, and as I tell a lot of my friends, probably have more fun than we should be having. I mean, we play a little more in the office than we probably should. I don't know, but we do work hard. I was just over there today. We had a recruit on campus, and drove over and went and did the tour with them, watched them play, and then got back here. And it's a young man from Jesuit High School that we are really hoping will come to us. So that's the background. And I haven't mentioned too much about my faith up to this point, my faith as it relates to coaching especially. So I will do that for you. Oh, how'd that get in there? Those are our granddaughters. I had to stick them in there. They're sweet. So this is, we'll get to that in just a second. So I grew up in a Methodist family. My mother's father was a Methodist minister, and his wife, my grandmother, also worked for the Methodist Church. She traveled extensively, helping them expand and develop and grow their missions around the world. So I grew up in a household that we went to church on Sunday, whether I wanted to or not. No matter how much I didn't want to, we went. I never really got involved with the high school group or junior high group there because Only one other kid in the group went to the same school I went to, and we weren't really good friends. So it just the kid. There was nothing wrong with the kid. The kids were great. I just never connected with them. That was really my doing. And I only mention that because I attended church. I really, I actually went to church. I didn't go to the youth group section because my parents said you should go to the youth group, and I go, I'd rather go to church. So that's what I did. But both my mother and my father, very positive role models. As I always used to tell my students when I was in the classroom, actually I said it to my team last year as well, in our first team meeting, that when I grow up, I want to be just like my dad. That would be the ideal. Someday I might get there. We'll see. But he is he's one of the best men I've ever known. So it's a high standard that I strive for. Years later, when I was working with kids, high school kids here at Fremont, and they would talk about that aha moment, that time that they knew that that's when I became a believer. On this day, at this time, I never had that moment. I never did, because I grew up like accepting it, and that was just the way it was. I will say, however, that Jody and I were married here at Fremont in 1981, and we attended church. We came to, when we got up in time and all those other good things. But when we had kids, we said we're going to get involved. We want to raise our kids in the church, and we like the community here. We met some great people, and so we made up our minds we're going to do that, and it's made all the difference in our lives for all four of us. So in addition to the great teaching we got from a wide range of pastors that we've had here, lay teachers that we've had here at Fremont, we also joined a covenant group about 20-some years ago, a long time ago. We're still meeting. The group is still together. We raised our kids together. There are 5 couples. We were the last couple in, and we had the oldest kids. And so we shared, school, traumas, tragedies, successes, championships, everything. Prayed over them, fed them, and our kids grew up as a family. And so they had an extended family through Fremont. And again, it's just, can't measure the impact it's had on their lives. They still would consider the kids in our covenant group, not our daughters, would consider them brothers and sisters, not brothers and sisters in Christ, not good for brothers and sisters. They communicate a lot more than we realize, than I think the parents realize. So, the impact on our lives is immeasurable. So all of these things, all of these influences have carried over to my teaching, which is also carrying over into my coaching. How I talk to players, how I interact with them, how I try and invest in their lives, build long-lasting relationships. I often tell guys that this is we're establishing a lifetime contract. It's not when you graduate, it doesn't necessarily have to be done. These guys aren't calling me and texting me 10 years down the road. Every once in a while I get a text. Every once in a while I might get a phone call. But when I do see them again at a reunion of some kind, it's like there's no time has passed, And so they're strong relationships built on going through a lot of stuff together. So it's a really, really enjoyable experience. But also I think there are many ways that parents, brothers, sisters, teachers, pastors, all impact people's lives. I think that being in a position as a coach, getting to spend a lot of time with them, both on the academic side and on the athletic side, it really builds a strong and deep relationship. There have been, over the years, many conversations about faith, about what I believe. I get asked a lot. I've had a lot of players over the years, starting at American River, and probably on every single at every school I've been at. Someone will say, "Are you a Christian?" And I I believe, no, usually they say, are you religious? And I don't know how to answer that. I said, yeah, I don't know if I'm religious, but I'm a follower of Christ. And they go, I thought so. So that opens the door, opens up doors and opportunities to talk. So since I've become a teacher and a coach, I've really tried to model living like a believer in Christ would live. Not the standard for these guys to follow, but simply as a person who's, doing the best he can to follow Jesus. So now I want to talk about the area that has been my greatest growth as a coach and a person and a follower of Christ, and that's been my 13-year relationship with Athletes in Action. As I mentioned earlier, when I came back from Menlo College, not really sure what I was going to do for a year. I thought I'd always heard about Athletes in Action. When I was growing up in Palo Alto, an Athletes in Action team would always come and play at Stanford, and several times we went out and watched them play. And I didn't have any idea what they were about, but I had heard of them. And so I looked online and saw that they were accepting applications for coaches to take teams overseas. So I put in my application, and Adam Jorvestead gave me a call back, and he was the director of basketball operations at the time, and we talked, and we now sponsor Adam in this Athletes in Action ministry, have since that time, and he's become a very good friend. When he comes out to California and does his fundraising that he does every year, he usually stays at our place. So just an outstanding individual, and there are some pictures of him in here. But he's the one who got me involved, kind of showed me the ropes. And my very first trip, I should also, I didn't know what Athletes in Action was. Before I show you some of the trips that we took, Athletes in Action is a Christian ministry group. It's a sports ministry outreach. So Athletes in Action, now it's called Crew on college campuses. They will have offices, branches throughout the world. They're in countries all over the world, and they will work with foreign governments, foreign sports associations, more than the governments, to invite an American team to come over and compete in their country. And so for decades, that's what Athletes in Action did. They started with basketball. They since moved to baseball, football. They actually have football now, men's and women's volleyball, track and field. That's pretty much it. And unfortunately, since the pandemic, it's pretty much dried up as far as that's concerned, but I'll get to that a little bit later. The whole purpose of this is to go to another country and share our faith and the experiences that we have in our lives, and how that faith has gotten us through tough times, good times, and so on. So the teams will play overseas. First, we have a training camp somewhere in the country for a week. Then we go abroad, and it's usually about 3 weeks that we're gone. It's somewhere between 18 and 21, 22 days, depending on where you go. Typically what we do in the country is, at the training camp, we go through, all the athletes and coaches put together their testimonial. They practice it with each other, and everybody does their testimonial at some point during the trip. Usually it's at a gym with the spectators and the opposing team. After the game, we play, and then someone gives their testimonial. And then what we'll often do is then go out and eat with the opposing team. That was always a really interesting time when we were in Moldova, or Romania, and China, and there's very little English, and these guys can communicate. It's just amazing, because they all know the NBA, they all know the NBA names, and they all have phones, and they look at videos, and they just, in 20 minutes, our guys are like, they try and sit together, because they have to spread out, and then in 20 minutes they're laughing and talking, and they don't want to leave. So that's always a fun time when we get to some personal connection. the experience of worshiping also in another country is really unique. So we've been to church services in all these other countries that very, very different and very, very unique, and I'll touch on some of those things. As far as pictures, and I don't have a lot of pictures, I won't bore you with a ton of pictures, but I did want to let you know, you're free to look at these. So each year I went on, I took a team abroad, I came back and I put together a photo album. So I'll pass these around, you're more than welcome to look at them. There's no particular order, and you just pass it along. That will tell you a lot more detail than I'm going to be giving you, but what I didn't have on my phone or on the camera I took with me, I couldn't find any pictures of Moldova and Romania. That was the first trip I took in 2011. And that was a pretty unique experience, starting with a training camp. Our training camp was in Indiana, small town in Covington, Indiana, right near the Illinois border. And so we got together for 5 days. We had 4 practices in those 5 days, and then we played a game.
Where
So
do you
we
get
have
the players?
10, 12 what's that?
Where do you get the players?
Well, all over the country. So what would happen before the pandemic is a lot of these players would sign up. Their coaches would say, you should go on an Athletes in Action tour. Oftentimes they're from faith-based schools, but they're not necessarily going to be the case. Every team I took, I also recruited players that I knew from schools where I worked.
Okay.
Because I knew that they would really flourish from it. It would be a great opportunity for them. So they come from all over the country. I had a couple guys from Canada as well. We get about 4 days of practice, and then we play a game. And our first game in Indiana, we drove to a state penitentiary in Illinois. They like to play prisoners the first game. And so that was a daunting experience, walking into a high security prison. We couldn't have cameras, couldn't have phone, and we had to do background checks. We had to have all kinds of stuff. And our guys, the coaches as well, were petrified walking into that place. These are felons. They're not. This isn't a day camp. So, got to go through all these gates and all these things to get out to the gym. And then, as we're warming up, they start filing in, and it's packed all around us. And we play the game, and they had some really good players. We won the game, I remember, and the only reason I mention that is because they were beating us. They had 2 guys that we could not stop. They were big, they were strong, they were skilled, and really out of shape. And by the end of the game, they were exhausted, and that's why we won. They couldn't play anymore, so we barely won. But the thing I take away from that game, there are 2 things I'll always remember from that game. One, there was a guy named Steve. He was from Massachusetts, went to a small Division III school, and I look over before the game starts, and he's over talking with some prisoners, not only telling him about God, he's trying to get him to accept Jesus right there. He's got his arm around the guy's in tears. He goes, this is wonderful. And he was like that wherever he went. That was his heart. And the other thing that I will never forget was a young man that I had recruited to come to Menlo College. But I left before he came. And he's another one that I have stayed in contact with. Just right before the pandemic was the last time I did the WhatsApp with him. He was in England at the time. But he was a young man from Texas. And we had never met face to face. And we had talked on the phone many, many, many times. And we both said, we just, like we knew each other. So I remember picking him up at the airport. Well, he was a 19-year-old. He was the youngest kid in our group, 19 years old. First time really not away from home, but first time without family, away from home. He gave the first testimony to the prisoners. And he talked about growing up outside of Houston. And they were riveted. And our guys were like, what? Where did this come from? He told the truth about his testimony. And it was powerful. And again, there were grown men crying. They all wanted to come up and talk afterwards. It's really, really neat. So it's very, very scary at the beginning, and it's probably one of the highlights of the trip every year. So then we went to Moldova, Soviet bloc country, very sobering, very unique situation. We lived in a dorm. We played the first day there. We called it the jet lag game. We played the national champion. They had just won the national. It was a Monday. I think it was a Monday or Tuesday. They had just won the national championship on Saturday. We just got off a 12-hour flight the night before. So they beat us, and they would have beat us if it wasn't a jet lag game. But it was fun. It was a great game for our guys. After that, what we would do is we did in Romania, not Moldova. Typically on Athletes in Action, on an off day or on a day, morning of a game, we will go do a clinic at a school or at a park and invite kids in and run camp for them. That's typically what we'll end up doing. Again, in Moldova, it wasn't that organized. They didn't have anything like that going. So what we did was, and our guys were not sure about it at first, but we went door to door in the dorm to share the 4 truths about Jesus. And our guys were like, oh, should we be doing this? And they said, no, we need to do some outreach. We need to reach out to people. And again, when they came back, they were gone for, I was with one group, but gone for an hour and a half. And they all came up, that was phenomenal. Because they sat and talked with people. And many of the people many of the young students had some faith. Most of them were Eastern Orthodox, which was very different, obviously. But anyway, that was. Then we drove into Romania for a few days and played a game there. Went to an Eastern Orthodox church. That was one of the most amazing services I've ever been through. It was a 3-level church, all obviously in Romanian. We had translators, but we couldn't hear everything that they were saying. The service was 3 hours long. There were 3 different sermons. Then the prayer requests, that went on for about 20, 30 minutes. But you thought, I mean, it's a full-on moving service. It's not like, hey, we should be done now. No, and then I also remember we did communion there, and they had wine, and it was bitter and horrible. It was just like, give me grape juice, please. So the following year, I volunteered to take another team, and we went to China. Completely different experience. First of all, as you've seen there, we can't go as Athletes in Action. The Chinese government would not allow a missionary group to come in. So we were I'm just blanking on whoever has the China book. American sport, what it says? It should say on the inside. I'm just blanking on the
East Asia tour. Let's see what we call.
Anyway, we couldn't go by Athletes in Action. The staff, there was Athletes in Action staff there. They actually played on our team because we only had 8 players, and there were other faith-based organizations working alongside Athletes in Action under different names, but everybody knew who we were, what we were doing, and we were told when we went there, you can't bring up God, Jesus, anything to a person. If they ask you, talk away.
Under 18 national team?
Pardon?
Were you the under 18 national team?
That's who we played, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
But so no, it's okay. I should remember. I'm blanking on it. We did get asked a lot. People were curious, of what we were doing there. And if you do say, well, we're a Christian mission group, they would start asking questions. They would start engaging. So it was a very different one, but it was some really interesting things happened on this trip. We did the training camp here in Sacramento. Fremonters were the host families, because when we go to a training camp, we stay with families in the community. And we practice here at Fremont in the gym. And we got to go over and lift weights at Sac State and meet some other people over there, a trainer. We had a young man from Denver who, before he came, he strained his groin. And he wasn't sure how much he'd be able to play. He said when he got here, he'd been resting. He goes, I feel pretty good. And we were working out. we played American River College. I tried connecting with a prison around here, and nobody would set anything up on the dates that we needed. So we played American River College, and he restrained his groin. And he was really so the next day, it's the day before we left for China, and I remember we're in our living room, and we're having a team meeting because part of our training is we go through all the principles and all the work we're going to do. We're trying to prepare these guys not only for this trip, but when they come back, for when they go back to their schools, they have tools to really reach out to people. So we're getting ready to leave. Everyone's going to go back to their host family. Last night we're leaving in the morning, and one of the players from Canada actually says, "Shouldn't we lay hands on this guy and pray for healing?" And our disciple goes, "Yeah, that's a really good idea." So we all laid hands on him. We prayed over him, and then we went home. And we get off the plane after another long flight, and we went to a park to kind of loosen up, get a sweat going, just because and get out the jet lag. And this guy says, "My groins never felt better." Didn't bother him the whole trip. And as we're leaving, we always have at the end of the tour, we always have a team meeting where we kind of debrief everything. And this guy, he was not a believer when he joined the tour. Don't have to be a believer in Christ to go on after with athletes in action. And so we're in a hotel room, and he said, "When I signed up for this, I didn't know what you guys were all about. And I thought, okay, I'll just go along, and I'll just do what I have to do so I get to play." And he goes, I've never felt better. And he said, "You guys have something going here." He's still attending church today. I know that because his friend who brought him called me a few months ago, and about something else. And I said, "How's Tim doing?" He goes, "Oh, he's great. I go to church with him every Sunday. He's doing well. He is a full-on believer." So, yes, sir.
Global sports program? Is that what you're?
Global sports program.
And by the way, you were a lot younger.
Oh boy! Oh well, I looked at Moldova. You should see Moldova.
Yeah, I saw that one first.
I thought maybe I had a son. We went to a worship service in China. It was the bottom basement of a bank. Armed guards with machine guns out in front, checking passports. No residents could go into this. Only international people. So we were, walking in like under fire there. So it was. If you look at that, I can just show you this as well. We always exchange gifts with every team beforehand. And this is what the Chinese gave me at one game. It's like a big ornate plate, and this has been in our garage for the last 10 years. But this was a newspaper after we played the first game. They had a bunch of our guys' pictures on the front page of their sports section, and I did my best to maintain this in best pristine shape as possible. It was wadded up in the garage as well. But this was promoting a game we played with that under 18 national team, and has all our names in Chinese. It's pretty. So all the guys got that as well. I won't pass it around. You can look at that later. But so the under 18 team was interesting. We played them in a big arena, about a 5,000 seat arena. We rode an hour and a half on a bullet train. We were in Beijing. We played a couple of games there, and then we went to this city. I can't remember the name of it. I can't pronounce the name of it. About an hour and a half away to play the under. They thought we were an NCAA Division I team. We were not. We were Division II and Division III, and the under 18 team was. The Chinese have a different way of doing ages, and it's very loosely structured. So most of these guys are 20, 21, which is fine. But they had their starters. I don't remember the exact measurements, but I believe they were 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", 6'5", and 6'3". And my tallest guy was 6'6". So we knew we were in trouble, and the team we played to warm up against them, he said, "You're playing the under 18?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "They're going to press you the whole game. They're going to destroy you. They're going to try and beat you by 50. You're an American team. They're going to try and beat you by 100." I said, okay, and then let's do what we can do, So we had our 6 college players and our 2 AIA staffers, and we're in this big arena, and I'm showing how we're going to beat the press. Because we never practiced together, any of us. We were down 24 points or so going into the 4th quarter. And we thought we were holding our own. We weren't embarrassed. They were pressing us. We actually made them get out of the press. We were beating their press. We had a young man from Ohio who went ballistic. He just started shooting threes. They put a 6'11" guy, didn't matter. Put a 6'5", didn't matter. He couldn't miss. We cut it down to about 4, okay, with a few minutes to go. There are 5,000 people. The place is packed with people. They're all cheering for us because we're making this great comeback. It was really exciting. We ended up losing, and the fans we were not ready for this. Come running down on the court, asking for autographs. They want our pictures. We're out there for 20 or 30 minutes signing autographs. This one guy comes up to me. He goes, "You," puts his girlfriend over here. "You take a picture." I go, "You don't want my picture." Why do you want? He goes, "No, you." I go, "I didn't play." And he goes, "You're the coach." And I said, "We lost." Of course, my Chinese was not very good. But, now, I bring that up for this reason. That was obviously a fun, memorable time. We traveled with them to another city, so we stayed in the same hotel and ate meals with this team for almost 3 days. Well, we didn't eat together very much. The language issues, they were a semi-professional team, basically. They were a professional team. And every morning, one of the AIA staffer, Chris, he would get up and go down to breakfast early, be the first one there. He'd take out his Bible and he'd read his Bible and do a Bible study and take notes. And the Chinese guys would walk in and look at it. And then the second night, after our game, we all go down to get something to eat after the game. We're all showered, and he's talking to 3 players. And I was with 2 of our players, so there were 4 of us and 3 of them, and we're all sitting around a table. And the big kid, Robert, spoke very good English. His brother was actually at that time attending UC Davis, so his parents wanted his kids educated in the United States for that experience. But we're sitting around the table, and again, we can't say we're Christians. We're here on a mission trip. And he said, "I have a question for you." He's saying to Chris, who he saw every morning. He goes, "What's that book you're reading?" And he said, "It's a Bible." And he goes, "Oh, okay. I've never read that. I've heard about it." And he goes, "Yeah, I read it every morning. That's how I start my day. It gets me thinking right, and it builds my relationship with God." And he said, "Okay." He goes, "So you're a Christian?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm a Christian." And he looks at me and he goes, "Are you a Christian?" I said, "Yeah." He looks at the other player, "You?" "Yeah." He looks at him and goes, "Oh, that makes sense now." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you guys seem like you enjoy playing with each other." He goes, "We don't enjoy playing with each other. It's a job, and it's not a fun job. If they lose, it's really bad. If they don't play well, it's really bad. It's never good enough." And he said, "You guys, it's fun playing you because you guys enjoy playing, and you talk to each other. You're kind to each other. So he felt that the way we played reflected what we were talking about. So that was a fun experience as well. Yes.
Did you mean that you traveled and played with those 6'10", 6'9" people for several days?
Yep.
You played with those same people?
Yep. And then we also went to a school and did a camp with them. And then we played we actually both U.S. and Chinese teams kind of blended and played their high school team out on an open court just for fun. Then we had a dunk contest. Everything had to have a dunk contest. So our guys like that. They like doing the dunk. So we didn't spend a lot of time with them, but we were with them. If you know what I mean. We weren't necessarily together a lot. Although that small group that Robert and his friends, they started hanging out with our guys, and Chris left him with a Bible when he left. He left a Bible for him. So The most impactful thing, though, the most impactful thing, my wife is telling me. The most impactful thing from China, though, was we were invited to attend a Bible study. It's against the law to study the Bible in China. So they told us, again, this community, the underground community that we were affiliated with, said, we all meet in this apartment complex. We'd love for you to come and share with us. You can't all come at once. It would be too obvious if you have all these Americans walking together in this neighborhood. So only half of you can go. One night and then the other night. And they call them fellies, F-E-L-L-Y, for fellowships. They call them fellies. So we walked into this felly, and they were there. I can't remember what book they were studying. And that was about an hour of them talking about a chapter, analyzing it, and then we broke into small groups. And now we had an interpreter helping us with some of the dialogue, but we didn't get all of it. Most of the people in our group were English speaking, so we all shared for about 20 minutes about what we thought the passage was. Then we went back out there, and we were there for about 2.5 hours. And the last 20 minutes, I can still get chills. They asked to pray over us. So they put all of us in a circle, and they gathered around us, and they all laid hands on us. And then they just started intoning. I don't know what they were saying. I have no idea what they were saying. But it was, God was in the room. There was no doubt. All of us, the players, there was another coach, Hank, who was with me, we're all crying. Literally, we're done. Everyone's got tears coming down. It's like, it was powerful. You could just feel it. And it was just an amazing experience. So we went back and told the others about that. They're like, oh, can't wait to go. They were the next night doing it. They didn't pray over it. They didn't do the prayer. This was the church service we went to on a Sunday. This was at the Felly. These were two guys that were interpreters for us. That's why I took their picture. Just wonderful guys. They spoke some English, enough to help us out. And this is us at Tiananmen Square. Everywhere we went, people stopped us and took pictures, especially this young man, 6'6", black, braided hair, very muscular, everywhere. From the very first day we landed, people wanted girls come over, guys, take their picture with them. And when we were leaving Tiananmen Square, we were getting on the subway to head back to our hotel, and I said, I got to go to the bathroom, and you need to go with me. And he says, yeah, I want to go with you. And I go, I'm not going with you. It's going to take way too long. Everybody gets stopped, and he said, no, he goes, Coach, I always thought I wanted to be Michael Jordan. I don't want to be Michael Jordan. It's incredible. Every one of these guys was gracious. Everybody kept their cool. This guy from Chicago who looks mean, he's not, but he looks mean, has tattoos all over his arm. We're out in front of a grocery store, and some old man with no teeth comes up on this bike, and he's just staring at our guys, And our guys just kind of, yeah, how you doing? And he walks over to Mark, and he just starts tracing his tattoos on his arm. He's probably never seen a black guy, I don't know. He's just tracing his tattoo, and Mark's just kind of sitting there like, what's he doing? And I said, he's just, look at your tattoos. He rode away, and Mark goes, if I was back home, I'd have punched him in the mouth. And I said, he goes, I know he doesn't mean anything. So anyway, really, really fun experience. So this is the group, and what you can't see is there are probably about 100 to 150 people on this side taking pictures of us as well. Every time we stop, people would take pictures of us. It was surreal. It was very, very strange. Then the last team I traveled with was to Guatemala. That was in 2014. There I am in front of the lake in Guatemala. Again, very different experience. If you saw the book, we were in 9 cities in 10 days. And we traveled with, this is before a game. This is the men's and women's team at a monument in one of the cities we went to. We traveled with the women's team. We all trained together at AI headquarters in Xenia, Ohio. Got along great with them, and I'm glad we were with them because our schedule was get up in the morning, drive to a new town, do a camp for kids, play a game, go to a hotel, get up in the morning, drive to a new town, And it was a grind, but it was a lot of fun. The first day, you know, I'd set up the camp, and all the stations tell them what to do. And of course, a couple of the girls and one of our guys, they spoke some Spanish. They were like, "What do we do? You know, how do we communicate? You guys, you'll figure it out." And again, just like any other place, in 15 minutes they're laughing, and the kids are on their backs, and all those other good things. So by the end, they were exhausted from doing those every day, and they look forward to it every day because the kids just would be kids, you know, like they are anywhere else. So just a really, really neat experience for them, for all of us. And then my final trip, actually I've gone to Honduras twice since then. I did not take a team here. I was this is Adam, this is the guy who got me going, Athletes in Action. And he played college basketball, so he's a 6'8" guy. But he, Rich and I went with him, and we did camps at schools, and I spoke at a, that's the worship service we went to in Honduras. And then this is a coaching clinic I did. And I'm trying to do a selfie there. I tried to get everybody in it. So it was supposed to go an hour, and after about an hour and a half, I said, are we done? And they all got, no, let's keep going. We went about 2 hours, and the only reason we had to leave was because we didn't get the room anymore. And it's not because I was so riveting, it was because they have so few resources. And I'm talking about things that I was teaching high school kids when I was teaching high school. And they're writing all this down like it's gonna cure cancer, you know, that this is gonna be the greatest thing ever. So they're just starving for help, starving for attention. So I would always print out packets of drills and plays, and I would hand them out to coaches. I didn't have this many, unfortunately. So the director there, I emailed him the copy, and he would email them to people as well. But that was really rewarding. And then at the end, I spoke at a national sports conference that they have every year, held at a university, and I just talked about coaching and faith and that type of thing. So that's at one of the schools. That's me leading a defensive drill. Yeah, we are, when you go on an Athletes Action tour, you are asked to pick a Bible verse. And so this is the one I picked, and I've used it ever since. Micah 6:8. So when, I haven't signed a lot of autographs, but when I do, when the players do, because they often do, the coaches not so much, the players definitely, they say just under your name, write down your Bible verse, whatever it might be. So I would write down Matt Davis, Micah 6:8. So that hopefully they'll ask or look it up. But I always felt that this kind of, for me, encapsulates what we're trying to do on the mission trip. That's essentially what we are trying to do. You know, we're trying to reach out to people, show them the same mercy that we've been given, and then to share humbly our struggles. Some of the stories that these guys have told over the years would be not shocking, but they're very open and honest. I mean, they talk about drugs in college. They talk about alcohol issues, gambling issues, and they say that. And they say, I was going the wrong way. That guy Mark, he said, I was right on the edge. And then he got his girlfriend that he had just married before he went on this tour. She pulled him back, and she said, you're coming to church with me, and you got to get your life right, and he has. So it's it's a humbling experience, it's a fulfilling experience, and it's obviously a very memorable one. Then I did want to show you this one last thing. These are the 5 AIA principles. So the reason I'm putting this up here is you don't have to see them all. I'm going to talk very briefly about the first one, and that's where I'll wrap it up. But during our training camp, and then when we have team time during the weeks that we're in country, this is what we're talking about. We go over each one of these in training camp, do at least one every day. They talk about what it means to them, how it impacts their lives. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Different ways that we try and get them to understand it, and then live it out. And then the hope is by living it out on this tour, when they go back to their schools, or in some cases, some of these guys have graduated, when they go into their jobs, they're carrying these principles with them. The thing that really has impacted my coaching career tremendously is this first one, the audience of one. And Athletes in Action calls it AO1. They go AO, the letter one, audience of one. Prior to this, going on this tour, I cared a lot about what people would say if we didn't win 20 games in a year, or if we lost this game. And during a game, if we were losing, I'm thinking, oh man, we shouldn't lose to this team. How can we explain it? You know, that's what I'd be wrapped up in. So my son would start churning like, how do I explain this to people? Since talking about this and living it out on the tour, I don't really care what other people think. And I'm in games now where it's not necessarily high pressure, but they're pretty intense level games, a high level of basketball. And I don't ever that doesn't come into my head anymore. I don't worry about that. I honestly don't. I've had coaches I work with like, you don't look nervous. Like, oh, I'm nervous, but this doesn't identify. I don't say this to them at that time, but my identity is not coaching. My identity is not how many wins we get. My identity is not how many guys that I coached at American went on to Division I. It's irrelevant. Before every game, when the national anthem is playing, that's when I do my prayer. I do my prayer, and I just say, God, I hope my words and actions are pleasing to you. And I'll do other things as well. What I don't do, and when I was a Christian Brothers coach there did this, and God give us the win. You know, I'm not gonna ask God for a win because the other team's doing the same thing. God doesn't. He's already determined it. He's already figured it out. So I'm not worried about it. I hope no one gets hurt, and I hope that my words and actions are pleasing to you. And then thank you for this opportunity to be here, to experience this. And that has just changed my whole perspective and really my mental and physical health. Not that I was, my body wasn't like in ruins because of it, but it's not anything I worry about anymore. I don't get caught up in what others are thinking, because I know if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, then it's all going to come out just the way it's supposed to. So, any other questions?
I want to know what you think about Mike Bibby going to Sac State.
He was a good player.
Yeah.